and welcome to our monthly Euranet Plus debate, part of the general concept of the Citizens' Corner here at the European Parliament in Brussels. The first one in 2014 is co-produced by the Public Service of Radio-Television Slovenia. Today we will be discussing the right to vote. The debate can be followed live on our Euranet Plus Inside website, our Facebook profile, as well as on Twitter. Users can, of course, comment, share, react, and interact. Some of you have been doing this, as I see already, so thank you for this. And joining us today in this second English part is our two MEPs, actually. No, one is right here, right now, so Mr. Andrew Duff from the UK. Hello.
No, I'm Ashley Fox.
Sorry, you're Mr. Ashley Fox, and you are from the UK. From the European Conservatives and Reformists group, right?
That's me.
Okay. And joining us today is also Mrs. Marjorie van der Broeke.
Hi.
Hello there. She is head of the press unit of the Parliament.
That's right.
Okay. And we also have Mr. Doru Francescu from the policy director of the think tank Vote Watch Europe. Hello.
Hello.
This is an NGO, an independent organization set up to promote better debates and greater transparency in EU decision-making. And as far as I know, joining us later will be also German MEP Mr. Rainer Wieland, Vice President of the European Parliament, and also another MEP from the UK, Mr. Andrew Duff. And the debate also features a panel of students from the Euranet Plus Campus Radio Network. And joining us today are three lovely students from Spain. One is Manuel Fernando Avila from the University of Vigo. Hello. And we also have Marta Portales Oliva from the University Autónoma of Barcelona, also from Spain. And the third student is Javiera Lampre from the UNED, Spanish National University for Distance Education. Hello. Welcome, everyone. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say on today's topic, which I already said is the right to vote. First, I think it's best if we start with a short audio clip done by our Campus Radio Network students from Poland this time, and let's hear what they have to say.
Some time ago I used to vote, but politics long time ago lost my trust. They are basically not doing what they are supposed to do. They are just fighting each other, and the things that are written in their programs are just formal. They are just on a paper. And no matter who you will choose, the results will be pretty easy to predict, and government party will fight with the opposition. The opposition will fight the government party, not to find a better solutions to the problems, but just to fight and nothing else.
People, not only young people, but most of the people in Poland actually don't want to take part in voting because they think that their vote doesn't change anything. They think that it's all already set up. The politics decided who will be the winner. So they don't even think about it.
I think that young people don't have enough knowledge about Europe, about voting. They don't know who can be in parliament. They don't know about politics. They don't know what exactly problems have their country. I think it's really sad because we are should interesting about our future and everything what will happen in Europe.
And the second thing is that the populism is really often used. So they are not talking about real solutions, to real problems, but the great sentences, the great words. But sometimes they are working not that problems that they should be working on.
Okay, we heard a short clip from the Polish students there. We could hear that with just a few months ahead of the European elections in May this year, there are thus many unresolved questions and issues, especially among young people. It seems that the general feeling is still one of distrust towards politics and politicians, with people feeling powerless to influence change at the EU level. We know that according to the Treaty of Lisbon, the right to vote and stand as candidate in elections to the European Parliament in the member state of residence is a fundamental right provided by this treaty. So maybe the first question would go, how well do EU citizens enjoy those rights under the same conditions as nationals from that state? Mrs. van der Broeke, perhaps we start with you.
Yes, it won't be a surprise, and so it's not a secret that turnout so far has been declining. But we are quite hopeful that this will be better this time. The slogan is, this time it's different after all, and there's various reasons why it's different.
Okay.
And I think one of the main reasons is that these elections have become more political in that it's become clearer what different political parties stand for, what it is that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And apart from that, as an institution, of course, we have a nice information campaign, and we hope that will help to show to voters that actually it's important. It is, as one of the students said, it's about our future. The voters this time will decide actually who is going to lead the Commission, so what policies are going to be at the origin of the entire EU politics for the next 5 years.
Okay. But do the member states adequately inform EU citizens, their electorates, about these rights? Mr. Fox, perhaps? How is your feeling? How do you see on this?
Well, the Polish students you spoke to were fairly cynical, in
Yeah.
fact, like voters everywhere. And Winston Churchill said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the alternatives. So nothing much has changed. Those Polish students, I guess, are all under the age of 24. So they've been fortunate to grow up when Poland's been a democracy.
Yeah.
And I suspect that older generations of Poles perhaps cherish that right to vote more than they do, because those youngsters perhaps take it for granted already. But we shouldn't take democracy for granted. It's a very precious right, and I would encourage people to vote and to cast their vote. But equally, the right to vote includes the right not to vote. And so if people choose not to vote, we should respect that, unless, of course, you live in Belgium where it's allegedly compulsory.
That's true. You got that. You got your point over there, and I think the students have prepared some of the questions here, and I would like to invite Javiera. She would like to know something. I think she's wondering about an important paradox there. Javiera, please.
Yes. Well, as the elections to European Parliament are independent from state elections, and having in account that the European vote profile is different than the state voter, it may happen that a country gets one kind of political representation inside its border and one different here in the European Parliament. And we cannot say that one is legitimate and the other is not. So what could be the answer to that paradox?
I think she was looking at you.
I don't think there is an answer. I think voters are entitled to vote for different sets of politicians. Of course, actually most people that cast a vote in the European election do so not because of some European issue. And they certainly won't be voting to decide who heads the Commission, because actually 99% of voters won't be aware of any lead candidate for any European political party. That will pass them by entirely. Most voters, when they vote, do so in reaction to their own national government. So in fact, when we talk about the European elections, what we will have are 28 national campaigns, which then come together at the end. But there is absolutely no sense in which there will be a unified campaign across the European Union. And I'm very pleased about that, because I want the nation state to be the building block for democratic processes in Europe. I don't want to live in a country called Europe, though I suspect the representative from the Commission dreams otherwise.
Thank you for that, Mr. Ashley Fox. Can actually the EU citizens from other member states fully participate in political life and exercise their electoral rights in the state they live in? Mr. Francescu, if we include you into the debate, would you elaborate on this?
Yes, of course. Citizens from different member states have the right to vote in European elections in their country of residence, just as if they were resident there and belonging to that country. That's a specialty of the European elections, if you like. And I would like to come back also to some of the things that the students have said, that they are unhappy with democracy and that the politicians are fighting each other. And I would insist on the fact that this is the nature of democracy. It is normal for different politicians, different political parties to have different views and to come up with different solutions to the problems that the member state or the European Union is facing. It is very good that it is so, because it's obviously the pluralism of opinion is a fundamental of the democratic process. And it is not only up to the member states, as we discussed earlier, to inform the European citizens about the elections, to inform about their right to vote in European elections, but it is also up to the parties, and I'm talking both about national parties, I'm talking about European parties, to inform the citizens about what their agendas are and what the differences between their points of view are, because I would suspect that the citizens will not come to vote in May only because they like that there are European elections. They will come to vote because they like one of the other of the political parties, and in order to do so, they have to be informed about what each of the political parties stands for.
Mm-hmm. I think we'll get back to political parties in a while. With us now is Mr. Andrew Duff. Hello there.
Hello.
An MEP from the UK, from the group of the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats for Europe. Welcome. And I think Marta has a question there regarding education, I think. Marta,
yes.
please.
Hello. So I think political education should start at an early age. For example, in Germany, there's a federal agency that it's for political education in schools, but also old people, and we don't have this organism in Spain. Should there be a common policy from the European Union that implements such organisms at a national level?
Mr. Duff, perhaps?
Well, I believe that school children ought to be taught about democracy from an awfully early age. And of course, travel is a very good way to interest them in the things that are foreign, mm-hmm. and the things that are complex, mm-hmm. and things that need to be governed democratically. Mm-hmm. But we cannot impose a curriculum from Brussels upon primary schools across the Union. That would be a breach of our treaty. It would be too imperious an approach.
Too early, perhaps. Yeah.
Well, no, but it would be too much of a centralized diktat mm-hmm. from Brussels to change the curriculum of schools in the EU. That is properly a responsibility for national and indeed local government. But we can encourage such things to happen and inform, to disseminate the exchanges. And we do that. I think we do that quite well.
At the EU level.
At the EU level. Yeah. I would say that we do that increasingly well as we have more experience.
But mm-hmm. there's a problem because at university today, if you make a poll and then if you ask who's the EU president, nobody knows the answer, but they know who the US president is.
Yeah, but what we need to do is to reform the structure of government in the EU so that it's much clearer just who's in charge of the EU. At present, executive authority is dispersed, it's spread, it's opaque. As you probably know, I am a federalist, and what I want to do is to strengthen the idea of government but it has to be a parliamentary one.
Thank you, Mr. Duff. Thank you, Marta. I think Manuel also has a question. A more concrete one, please.
My question is, why don't do information campaigns in different universities of the country to increase the knowledge of the candidates that will represent Spanish people in European Parliament? And how and through which tool the young people can exercise the right to vote?
I think at this point, this one would be good for Mrs. van der Broeke.
I must admit, I was momentarily distracted by the arrival of our distinguished MEP, Rainer
Okay,
Wieland.
who was paying attention to the question?
I was paying attention to the question.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Fox.
I'd say to our colleague here that it is not the business of the European Union to go about spending taxpayers' money on information campaigns, in my view. This is properly a matter for the nation states if they choose to spend that money. And actually, I'd say, no, don't bother. I think we in Brussels and my colleagues in Westminster and other capitals are all too ready to say, here's a problem and the answer is to spend public money to do something about it. Actually, no. I think we would improve the lives of our citizens if government and the EU did rather less and we spent rather less money.
I think Mrs. van der Broeke would like to
The campaign that the European Parliament's DG for Communication is waging has been decided, obviously, by the political authorities with an overwhelming majority of the European Parliament. So all these decisions have been taken and approved by the political authorities, and I think also a lot of national authorities actually do spend money on information campaigns, which are political information campaigns on their elections and informing about the rights of citizens. And I think I can safely say that we're not doing anything different.
Okay, I think Mr. Andrew Duff would like to add something.
Yes, I mean, we try. That's the answer. We try to speak to student groups all the time. And it's quite good fun. It's hard work, but it's good fun. I come from a place called Cambridge, where we have a large university that you might have heard of. But I also speak to student groups from across the Union. So it isn't as if we're completely isolated here in the ivory tower of Brussels. We do get out, travel, speak, preach, encourage, stimulate, stir up, and try to provoke dissent.
So the two-way communication is a huge deal. I think you're all aware of this. Joining us now is also a German MEP, Mr. Rainer Wieland. Welcome there. He's also Vice President of the European Parliament. And I think we will continue now. It's obvious that the low turnout is expected in this year's elections too.
No. It's not obvious. It is not obvious. With great respect, we're trying a lot more than we have done previously to stir up interest and to polarize the debate between, if I could put it crudely, pro and anti-Europeans, between federalists and nationalists. There are also the classical party spectrum of socialists, liberals, Greens, conservatives, which will play. But I think that the thing which is different this time is that the crisis, the financial crisis, has provoked far more serious thought than previously about the future direction and importance of integration.
This is actually the wrong kind of projection of media sending this message out. We have 4 months to go, so there's still some time to change this trend. Would you add something, Mr. Wieland, to this?
I think the turnout is an important point, but we should not overdo, over-interpret the function of the turnout. We have clearly to see that in the last years we had some new countries where with a traditional low turnout, so this contributes that the turnout declined. In my country, for the first time since years, we had a small increase of the turnout on the last elections. And if you would force me to bet, I would bet for an increasing turnout in Germany. If you look at the same time to the turnout of the national elections, we had the highest turnout of around 92% in 1972, the Brandt election. In the last election in Germany, we had a turnout of about 75%. In all member states, you see on all turnouts a certain erosion of the turnout. So we should not slip in every shoe, and we should not organize self-fulfilling prophecies concerning the turnout. The voter has also the right not to vote.
Yeah, as Mr. Fox reiterated this fact a while ago. Javier, I think, has something to add here. Perhaps, please.
Yes, as you both been talking about, having the right to vote also means having the right to not vote. But what happens to people that don't vote because they don't get they have a lack of information about what does voting in the European Parliament involves?
Well, you're right that some people choose not to vote because they really don't know what it's on about. Some people take an active decision not to vote because they don't like any of the options open to them, and that's perfectly open to them. And I really don't think it's for politicians to... I think we should encourage people to vote, and I stress that importance when I speak to universities in my region. But I really am not in favour of large taxpayer-funded campaigns hectoring people about how they should vote. You have that right. Individuals will choose whether to use it or not, and I'm perfectly content with that position.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Well, according to the latest Eurobarometer poll, I think it shows that the EU citizens consider that receiving more information from the political parties on their programs and on the impact of the European Union on their lives could contribute to a higher turnout. Is this right? What do you think,
I think it's an awfully easy pretext for people who are lazy. Voters can't explain national politics very well. If you ask them to explain the economic and financial crisis, to analyze it, they can't. Few people know who represents them nationally. Let's be honest. Political parties are failing to sustain democracy as they ought to and as they used to. It's especially an acute problem at the European level because it's a long way from the locality. But for heaven's sake, the citizen has got to exercise himself a bit. We can't do everything. We can't spoon feed. We can't bribe people to vote. And I get a bit frustrated at the laziness of an awful lot of our European peoples at present. If you don't vote, it means you're quite happy for all the others who vote to make up your mind for you. I think that's morally weak.
Thank you. I think Marta has a question regarding a concrete example of a program, I think.
Yes, well, right now, as you know, in Spain, there's some concern about the abortion law. And, most women don't feel represented in a national level or in a European level. Shouldn't the EU have a common agreement in the member states for the self-determination right of the woman?
Mrs. Marjorie, perhaps?
well, without wanting to express myself on the content, I will leave that to the honourable MEPs. I would just like to remind that there was a resolution voted on this in the plenary, and before that there was another resolution voted that was specifically about Europeanizing the rights to sexual health care, including abortion, and that resolution did not get a majority. Apart from that, it's an area where the EU doesn't really have competences. Healthcare and decisions on what should be included in national healthcare is still decided by national and local governments and not at an EU level.
I mean, let's be absolutely clear that abortion rights and sexual health are absolutely the right of the nation states. This is nothing to do with the EU. And about a month ago, the EU passed a resolution which I supported, which said just that. It is none of our business. So whether I agree or disagree with the Spanish government is completely irrelevant. It's not my decision. It's a member for national MPs in the Cortes, and it's for the Spanish electorate to vote for their members and for them to make the decision, and the EU should not interfere.
Clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Manuel, I think you also have a question regarding this?
I have a question about the information of the candidate. It's like, where and how can I get information about who is the most suitable candidate to represent me and my community, and also my ideals in the European Parliament? It's because I don't want to make a mistake and then suffer the consequence. And you say lazy, but sometimes it's not lazy. It's like we don't have the information, even internet, media, but it's not the information that we need to make that decision, because sometimes we don't make the exercise to vote, but anyway we suffer the consequence, can be good or in bad situations.
Mr. Francesco, perhaps, I think, since your organization promotes better debates and greater transparency regarding EU decision-making.
Exactly. This is exactly what Vote Watch Europe, our organization, does. We are tracking the activity in the European Parliament, and we publish on our website information on the activity of the members of the European Parliament. So you have this website called votewatch.eu. Moreover, in the run-up to the elections, we try to contribute to the process of information about what the agendas of the political parties and individual politicians are. We are building a website. It's called electio2014.eu, which will be available since the beginning of April, where the people will be able to see what the members of the European Parliament have voted on and what their individual positions were. So you can look and track the members, your candidates, and see what each of them stood for, and then you can make your own choice depending on how well you share their views.
Vote Watch is quite good. It's a bit crude and simplistic. You also have rivals who do the same sort of exercise, and you should have a look at them. But for heaven's sake, please do not think that politics is a pure science. It ain't. You have to take a risk, and you will make mistakes. You will vote people in who will turn out to disappoint you. That's life.
Mrs. van der Broeke, I think she had...
If I can contribute, I mean, we are talking about two different things. Vote Watch is tracking. You can track the person you have voted for or a person who have not voted for, but you asked how you could make your decision. And I think parties and candidates do a lot that you can make the acquaintance. In my country, if you write to the party, say who is your candidate for my region, you get an answer. You can come in contact with him. Possibly today it's more easier than ever to come in a personal contact in front of the election with a candidate. And the other thing is that there are some lazy people, but for some people it's also very complicated. We have an interesting instrument in Germany. It's called Wahlomat, so Votomat, something like that. You are asked 38 questions, and you give an answer, and you can even give a second tick box if some question is very important for you. And then this machine is comparing the programs of the political parties and says, well, if these are really your relevant answers, you should most likely vote the B party or the C party or the X party. You do not have to, but we had 11 million visits in front of the last Bundestagswahl.
Wow, that's a lot.
I think you will have several ways of following or seeing what candidate would more be for you. We've got an elections website up. I understand Vote Watch is coming in April. We've got one up since the 1st of December. And there are also links to the different European political parties. So I would invite you to have a look at that, see what their programs are, and I think you can also, with the social media, there's so much you can follow. You can follow candidates, you can follow MEPs on Twitter, on Facebook, and see what they want and what they want to do afterwards.
I agree with all that you already said, but it's, for example, that information that is on the websites, or sometimes we don't know that exists, but maybe it's not because we don't look for them or we don't want to track, but because we want to participate, we want to exercise our right to vote. But when it's another kind of democracy things, we know, but why we don't know about these ones, I hope you can understand what I'm talking about, what I'm trying to explain to you right now. It's like, why another topics are most important than this? If anyway this affect me and affect my community. And why I don't know, maybe if exists a web page, Facebook, and I can track in different programs that maybe I don't know that even exist. And it's only that I have to say.
Thank you, Manuel, for your input. At this point, I would like to make a pause during the debate because we've got quite a lot of traffic on our Facebook profile. And if I pick a question, thanks to everyone who's reacting during this debate, maybe Mr. Wieland, a question to you, a very concrete one in case someone is thinking about this. What are the conditions we should fulfill to become a candidate?
Well, our model, I mean, I speak as a German. Very often I'm asked by pupils, what are the qualifications you should have? And I ask people, what do you think which I should have? Who believes having passed the study? Then some fingers raised. Foreign language, a lot of finger raised. And I said, well, it is only 18 and being a citizen of the Union. This is the only qualification, and the voter has to decide if the other qualifications are enough or not.
Okay, thank you. Maybe a question to you, Mrs. van der Broeke. How is the campaign ahead of the EU elections changing? What's going on right now? You probably have a schedule. At what point is the campaign now?
At the moment, we are going from the first campaign where we're raising awareness about what has been dealt with by the European Parliament in the EU, and the topics that were the most important, to more the awareness of the voting date. And I would like to stress that the campaign, of course, does not say how voters should vote. And there is, of course, a respect. I know that in Spain that's very sensitive for people who do not vote. However, people should be able to make well-justified, well-based choice, we think, and that's why we're trying to give them as much information as we can. For instance, during the website, but there's lots of events going all over, debates in the entire European Union. We have information offices in all the countries, and they are working very hard on this. So we're now slowly going into the phase of the awareness of the 22nd to the 25th of May 2014. That's when the elections will take place. And then the campaign after the elections will shift again, focus to the constitution of the new parliament, the election of the Commission President, because, again, this time it's different because there are different candidates already. The Liberals have only yesterday decided that Mr. Verhofstadt is going to be their candidate. So then we're focusing on the Commission of the President.
That's the great breakthrough at this phase of this campaign, that the political parties are for the first time being obliged to express themselves politically more clearly and to put up champions who will lead their electoral battle. I think that in itself will transform, will dramatize the actual campaign. And I'm very pleased that the Liberals, after a fairly bloody contest, actually, have finally agreed to support Guy Verhofstadt. The Socialists have chosen a single candidate from a short list of one.
Mm-hmm.
The Greens are having primaries. The PPE have an awful lot of candidates, it seems to me, all of them very, very good. And the selection will be in March, I think, at the beginning of March.
We can talk about... Yeah, of course, but very brief, please.
I don't think these champions that he's talked about will have the slightest effect on the European campaign. And I think it's quite funny. He talked about the Liberals choosing Guy Verhofstadt. I mean, they had two candidates, and they didn't have an election. They just agreed that one would come first and one would go for a different job. I mean, it's an absolute farce of a situation, and the Socialists have chosen one candidate out of a short list of one. And my group won't be putting up a candidate, a Euro champion, because we think the nation state is the most important democratic building block.
Thank you for this point. I think if you want to elaborate, we can talk after the debate. We can expand the subject even more. But at this point, I would like to wrap things up. Just referring to one more thing, the Commission, I think, on Europe Day, is going to present a handbook about those European rights we were talking about during today's debate in very simple language. And I think Manuel has one more question regarding this. Please.
The handbook is, will the European Parliament send this handbook to the principal universities around Europe as information campaign? Or how can young people from Europe countries will have access to these handbooks and get the information that is in there? I think maybe it will be online, or...
Mr. Wieland, perhaps?
I guess you can get it online, but I just want to stress that information, not only on politics, information are not only things to push, but also things to pull. Everybody informs himself on things who seems important to him. If you buy a new radio, you inform which is the best. You inform how many money you have, and of course, if you make the wrong decision, you suffer. Yeah.
That's what, he was afraid of.
Yeah. I do hope the Commission isn't chopping down a forest to print 1 million of these booklets. I do hope it is being done all online.
Again,
I would have to check with my colleagues
debate.
from the Commission what they're doing with that.
Okay, maybe after the debate you can continue the conversation. Well, it's obvious that exercising the right to vote can bridge this gap between EU citizens, MEPs, the European institutions, and moreover give the citizens the opportunity to help build a better community, the European Union in this case, of course. We all seem to agree that practicing a two-way communication will be more than useful in order to achieve that and avoid any misunderstandings, because we've heard today that there are quite many misunderstandings which need further research, communication. And like it is with many things in life, of course, it's a matter of working together. We have 4 months to work on that, so we better use the time, I think. Plus, we know that the European elections campaign does not stop on May the 25th, but will continue. And at this point, I would like to thank everyone who participated at today's debate. I know time flies quickly. So on the right to vote, we were discussing today here in Brussels, I would like to thank the European Parliament Vice President, Mr. Wieland, for coming here. Thank you. Also the 2 MEPs from the UK, Mr. Delft and Mr. Fox. Thank you. And Mrs. van der Broeke, the head of the press unit at the European Parliament. Thank you for coming. And Mr. Francescu, the NGO representative, and also, of course, all the students who raised their concerns and questions, and everyone who posted their comments, questions, reactions online. Thank you for that as well. I'm Lidija Petkovič, and I wish everyone a nice rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.